about to answer the most redundant question in regards to the Nintendo Switch. Is retro gaming on the Nintendo Switch Online Expansion Pass worth it? I'll give you the answer now and you can quit off the video. Actually, don't do that. It is worth it, but I have discovered some things about it that I really do not like. And we're going to be going through absolutely everything on there today. We're going to try some games, we're going to go through all of the emulators themselves, and I'm going to give my conclusions because you need to know if you're going to be investing in the Switch Online Expansion Pass for 2023 so you can get access to some retro games as well. Let's do this.
Here we are on the interface. We have the Nintendo 64, which is actually just finished updating. I'm hoping to see some new games in here. The classic handheld Game Boy, my favorite console Super Nintendo, everybody's major surprise on the Nintendo Switch, the Sega Mega Drive, the NES, and of course the Game Boy Advance. It has been a number of months since I have dived in to these games, but we're going to be asking, is it worth it to have a Nintendo Online with Expansion Pass? Of course, the Expansion Pass giving you access to all of these said consoles that I've just listed. So let's see what's new as of August 2023. And of course, we are greeted with there is something new to play. Oh, okay. It's actually new that these panels are flipping. So we have Super Mario World, Super Mario Advance 2, Yoshi's Island Super Mario Advance. Okay, we have the exact same game, but we can use there's a different box art there. Obviously, we've got the American on the left here, and then the European. Okay, we have yet more of the same game. See, that bugs me, guys. We've got some Fire Emblem. Excellent. Fire Emblem. Excellent. Super Mario Advance. And last but not least, Fire Emblem. Okay. Okay, so for me, just at first glance, there's not much added onto this. And I'm going to be brutally honest here. I absolutely couldn't care less between the different region variations. But let's not forget the feature. Playable titles, you can turn off the different regioned games. Again, totally pointless feature for me personally, but it is good if you do want to streamline your kind of overface, your kind of desktop, if you would, where all your games are. So yeah, it's again just very redundant for me. What we're going to do is we're going to do a side-by-side comparison. We're going to hit up some of the new games. We're going to go for we'll do some of this Super Mario Advance 2. So let's start out with the European, and then we'll go over to the NTSC and we'll check out some of the key differences.
Super Mario.
Okay, I don't know if you noticed it, but the only difference that was noticeable to the naked eye was that the European version had a language select screen as soon as you got past that very first introduction screen, whereas here it was just nothing, it's just kind of straight in. I mean, obviously it makes sense. Europe is a very big and very diverse continent, but so is North America. You know, there's a lot of Spanish people that live in North America and Mexican, etc. So I'm quite surprised at that. But other than that, I didn't actually notice anything. So again, just on reflection, I don't care about the differences in between kind of areas. I mean, it's great, obviously, if you are fluent in different languages, but let's face it, it's not exactly a great difference. In terms of the game library on here, I'll be brutally honest with you, none of them massively interest me. I own them all on original anyway. I think this is a pretty weak lineup and they've been pretty slow off the mark to actually improve on this actual library, but you guys might have a different opinion. That's just mine. Again, region differences, it's a bit of a thumbs down for me, pointless feature. Okay, as with the GBA, we have lots of new things to play. Straight off the bat, this is massively more padded out than the GBA selection. We've only got 2 new titles here. Don't even know what that even says. Not even going to pretend to pronounce that. I don't care. And then we have Mystery Tower. Okay, so both of these I've never heard of. Maybe that's because they're Japanese. This particularly Japanese, I don't know. But nonetheless, this is such a better library in comparison. But it raises that question of quality over quantity, and I think that's going to be important as we're looking through this in 2023 for NES selection. For me, I think the NES selection is very, very good. Of course, you've got some classic titles on there. Super Mario Brothers, Super Mario Brothers 3, Dr. Mario. I think there's something for every kind of gamer here. However, there seems to be an imbalance between quality and quantity. Yes, they've got the quality titles, but there's also a lot of terrible titles that I just couldn't gel with, I just couldn't vibe with, and it just didn't feel right. I'd very much like to see some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on here, but I doubt we'd get that. I even tried my hand at Mystery Tower, and whilst I figured out what to do, again, it just fell flat. But it might be something that you really, really like. I think I am being incredibly picky here, because overall I think this is a decent value for money. But the NES over the Super Nintendo was not my console, so I'm excited to actually dive over to the Super Nintendo and actually see what's new there. Because of course, if you know me and you've watched the channel for quite some time, you'll know that it is my favourite console. But there are also some advantages to not being familiar with these games. You can treat it as a try before you buy. I just tried Shadow of the Ninja for the very first time and I absolutely love it. The game feels really nice, you feel incredibly agile, and there's different power-ups to collect as you progress through the levels. I'm actually going to put this on my list of I want to buy, and as you can see, it's 1 or 2 player, honing into that classic co-op of the 80s that we all absolutely adored. This is a brilliant game.
I need a few seconds of your time to tell you about channel memberships. If you guys want to become a channel member, click join from the main page or the second link in the description. There are 3 tiers, all with different perks for you if you want to become a team member. Thanks for your time. Let's continue with the video.
Okay, over to the gorgeous Sega Mega Drive, and we have a plethora of new titles, but before we reveal them, just taking a little peek down, this is probably the best library so far that we've kind of completed in this video, if you would. There's a nice balance of quality, there's lots of quantity, and I think this is absolutely gorgeous. And for something like, say, Castlevania Bloodlines, which costs an absolute fortune, it's that old classic thing of having it, here on your Nintendo Switch to be able to play. If you're not a physical collector, me personally, you guys know I am a physical collector, although I don't own Castlevania Bloodlines, but I do own quite a lot of these. Enough of my rambling, let's see what new titles we have. Okay, oh my god, yes! Street Fighter 2 Special Champion Edition, we're playing that. Okay, Pulseman, never heard of it. Kid Chameleon, excellent choice. Okay, Crusader of Senti. Oh, the classic Ghouls and Goblins. Again, no matter what platform I play this on, I'm always terrible at it. Landstalker, brilliant. The Revenge of Shinobi, it's a classic safe title. And finally, we have some flicky. So I think these titles here, especially this one, already off the bat, they've added a lot of value for me. I'm excited to plow through this. Okay, quick tip. Playable titles, I changed it from North American versions to North American, European and Korean. And what it's actually done is open up yet more games. Of course, we've got Salil, which you guys in North America might not recognize this name or this box, and that's because you guys had Crusader of Senti, which is the exact same game. But here what you notice is there's a massive difference in the box art. Unlike the GBA, for example, which is very, very similar, with something like your Mega Drives, it's incredibly different. The mere name itself, Mega Drive and Genesis, completely different. You guys had the red band in, we had the blue band in, and I actually really like this feature as much as I didn't like it in the Game Boy Advance section of this, but I think it looks fantastic in the Sega Mega Drive version. Straight in, North American selected only. We're going to try, oh actually we don't even have European versions here. That's interesting. So it is North American only, and that's absolutely fine because we have 2 new titles, which are Side Pocket and Harvest Moon. Fantastic. I recently got a copy of this, which is an incredibly obscure European release. Unfortunately, mine's in German, but I am still stoked to have this relic in my collection. Straight off the bat then, again, very similar to the Sega Mega Drive, we've got a gorgeous balance of quality and quantity. Unlike the NES and unlike the GBA, so this is a very, very strong feature. The Super Nintendo aspect of the online Switch package. I love this. And of course, there's some incredibly expensive titles on here. Breath of Fire 2. We've got the unreleased, tangible rather unreleased. We had an official release on the SNES Mini, and of course we have a release here as well. We've got some, again, very expensive Breath of Fire, Demon Crest. We have Earthbound up here as well. Somewhere I've seen it. There it is. Obviously that goes for thousands if you can get a CIB copy. So again, very nice kind of clash of quality and quantity. I own a lot of them, believe it or not. I managed to scoop up Prehistoric Man about 4 years ago at a gaming convention on one of my retro game hunts. So that's really cool. And again, it's nice to see some more Super Famicom games. I would like to see more Super Famicom games on here because the Japanese box art is absolutely gorgeous. I think out of the North American, European, and Japanese, Japan are leading the front when it comes to video game box art. Why? I don't know. They've just clearly got it and we are lacking somewhat. So yeah, this is a lovely, lovely selection. Very happy with this. And I think the Sega Mega Drive and Super Nintendo collections alone make £34.99 well worth it. And of course, as a streamer, having these as digital products and not being able to change games and set up original hardware, it definitely makes my life a hell of a lot easier. There are, of course, games that I've not played, such as Tough Enough. It's a fighting game very reminiscent of the likes of Street Fighter 2, but it doesn't have a patch on Street Fighter 2. It kind of looks really janky, like when your character lands a punch or a kick, there's this awkward pause, and then the gameplay continues. I'm not quite sure what that's about. It maybe just, it's kind of just dumped there because, well, you know, why not kind of thing. And I think that's the problem with maybe a kind of half a dozen of these titles. They just seem to be kind of dumped there. But on the whole, I would say 90% of your Super Nintendo stuff is absolutely banging. As a Super Nintendo girl, though, I will say, I'm sorry, because I prefer the Sega Mega Drive lineup on the online functionality here on the Nintendo Switch. So I guess in this episode, I'm more of a Sega girl. In terms of the 2 new games that are added, Side Pocket intrigued me the most. I'm a sucker for a good pull game, and whilst this had some dodgy music and some really dodgy 8-bit looking characters, this was actually quite a fun game and one that I'm considering buying in a physical form. Okay, something new to play. It looks like we've already got the region settings unlocked. I will double check. But you can obviously have, I like this feature as well, you can change the game screen. I do actually love that. And yes, we've got them both selected. So let's check out what the new games are. We have Blaster Master, Enemy Below. I dare say this is another region version. No, I'm wrong. Bit of Kirby, Tilt and Tumble, which I've never actually played. And Burger Time Deluxe, what an absolute classic. This is actually in its prime in an arcade form, but still good on the Game Boy. Oh, and some classic Kirby's Dream Land 2. Oh wow, there's actually quite a lot added here. I knew about Oracle of Seasons, of course, rocking the European version there. Of course, the North American. Slight difference in the box art there. We're going to have the same here again. Really nice kind of box art overall, I think. Oh, and yes, this was actually tweeted out by, I don't know, somebody I follow. I did see them tweet out about the trading card game becoming available. That's cool. Oh, I don't really like it. Of course, we've got the European version and we've got yet more European languages. So on the whole, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 new games. That's not actually bad. Let's have a little glide through. Again, very much like the GBA, there tends to be less of the handheld stuff that I'm finding. And again, you've got your kind of really annoying difference. It just knocks me a little bit. I'd like to see a few more quality titles on here, but nonetheless, this is good. This is good. We're going to dive into a little bit of Alone in the Dark. We're going to try some Burger Time. Let's get into this freaking gameplay, shall we? I believe overall this is a good selection. It's nowhere near as good as the Sega Mega Drive or the Super Nintendo. Alone in the Dark, I wondered why they even bothered with that. The whole game looks absolutely shocking. It's really difficult to go. The screen looks like it's just a dump of polygons all merged in together, and there's that horrible white flash. It kind of feels like a Spectrum game. It's just an absolute no. I don't know who puts these through QA to go on here in the first place. But nonetheless, you have got some of the classics. Burger Time for me is a great one. It's always great to see Kirby. We've got some classic Zelda, albeit, Pokemon, not my preferred choice of Pokemon game, but it's nice to see. Maybe that's for some foreshadowing on some upcoming Pokemon titles. I think this would be a lot better with, I think the Game Boy, any kind of Game Boy Pokemon is just going to be an absolute rave on here. As we know, it's hugely popular. It absolutely always has been, and I think it always will be. So get some Pokemon here. Let's add some serious value to this Game Boy library. Righty, something new to play. Let's just check our settings. We're going to switch just in case there's any exclusives. I'm not bothered about the box art, but I want to check the exclusives. So we'll go back, and if it's double up, I'm absolutely going to cry. So new games, we got some classic Pokemon Stadium in Italian, which means we're going to have different languages. Oh yes, Spanish, Italian, Pokemon Stadium 2. Okay, we're getting a theme here. We're getting a theme. German, Spanish, German, French. I was going to say European. It's North American. Is that it? We just have a plethora of Pokemon Stadium and Pokemon Stadium 2. Just for ease, what I'm going to do is actually just switch back, not to over-encumber myself. So here we go. I am having a scan. It's been a while. Classic F-Zero X, got a lot of love for that. I think it's, long overdue. We need a new F-Zero game. I hope Nintendo don't give up on the IP. I hope we can see that. I loved Banjo-Kazooie back in the day. We've got some classic Mario Tennis. That's another physical one I need to add to my collection. This doesn't look as beefed out. I thought there would have been a lot more N64 games to go at here, but this is meh. I mean, it's not bad. I think overall, just at face value, we've definitely got quality over quantity, and that's what we want. We've got Ocarina of Time, we've got the Banjo-Kazooie, we've got Mario 64, we've got Mario Kart 64. There's lots of good stuff on here, and if I was to rank, in fact I will, in the conclusion we will rank all of this, all of the features, everything, starting with my favourite through to my absolute worst. I already know where I'm putting this. So yeah, it's not too bad at all.
My final thoughts. If that package only included the Sega Mega Drive and the Super Nintendo, it would be worth it alone. The Sega Mega Drive collection and lineup in there, Castlevania Bloodlines, Gunstar Heroes, there's so many expensive titles, really good quality titles, that if you were to buy, you'd be spending thousands and thousands of pounds. Mega Man Wily Wars, for instance. The Mega Drive was my absolute favourite, and I never thought I'd say that because I much prefer the Super Nintendo over the Sega Mega Drive, but I can be objective about this. The lineup is way better. Compared to the Super Nintendo, there were some floppy titles on there that I just didn't give a shizzle about. The Game Boy Advance and the Game Boy definitely had the weakest titles and the weakest box art, because I paid a lot of attention to the box art. Obviously with your Game Boy Advance you've got very, very similar between the regions, whereas something like on the Sega Mega Drive, the Crusader of Senti and Soleil, for example, the same games, different regions, very different box art. Again, there's always that element of try before you buy. If you want to shell out tons and tons of money on Soleil, or you want tons and tons of money on Castlevania Bloodlines, you get a chance to try that within those packages. So for me, the redundant question is it value for money? Absolutely. I think I paid $34.99. My subscription runs up to December and it gives me access to all of those games. One thing I will say though is I did expect more games to be added, especially to the Super Nintendo stuff, as that was a massive selling point for me, to be able to play Super Nintendo games on my Switch. But then I realised that the Sega Mega Drive was being added and I was like, this doesn't feel right, but it absolutely feels right in 2023. So I think it's a worthwhile investment, especially if you don't collect physical, and especially if you collect physical, but you're short on space. This is a great investment. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Massive help for me if you leave a like, even bigger help for me if you subscribe, and I will catch you in the next one. Cheers.